It is warm. I don't know when that was. Maybe. Good afternoon. We are back on Senate Committee on Institutions, and it is still January 6th, 2026. And now we have Buildings and General Services, and we have the Commissioner, Wanda Minoli, with us. And we'll go around and introduce ourselves. Wendy Harrison, we chair this committee and Senator for the Windham District.
And I'm Rob Plunkett, Senator of Benton District. Feels like I already know you, even though this is my second year, so mine too. And Vice Chair.
Senator Joe Major, Windsor.
Senator John Benson, Orange.
It's Senator Benson's first day.
Yes. So, I'm Wanda Minoli. I'm the Commissioner of Buildings and General Services. I've been serving in this role for about a year and a half now. But I had a wonderful opportunity of spending almost 20 years at this department before I transitioned and came back. So welcome. It's hard to believe we're back here again. I feel Emily and I are just walking down the hall and so, gosh, I feel like it's the end of the session already. And it's only the first day. And so with me, I have some of my staff. And I would like to start with Emily Kosiski. She is my deputy commissioner. She has done a phenomenal job. She's getting the whole operations and how we move and groove at BGS, and she's a great partner. You can always reach out to her if I'm not available. We work very closely together. For the other members and for our newest member, we have Joe Aja, who 40 years almost. Joe is our director of design and construction. Joe will spend a lot of time in here. Joe has only worked for BGS. Is that correct? In the state, so he is, proud to come through. And Sabrina is the our project manager, but she's also an architect. And Sabrina has the Sabrina's been fortunate to be the lead on the AHS Women's Correctional Facility and the Youth Stabilization Treatment Facility, but she has been leading the project team and the key relationships and partnerships with DOC and DCF and has done a phenomenal job. And then Cole, I believe you also met last year. Cole is the legislative liaison. He does special projects, all of our reports. Cole is a great person you can reach out to as well. Cole, you will see him here a lot. He was not necessarily here to testify, but he will definitely, he can answer questions, but he can also get immediate information that you need. So
Thank you.
thank you. So with that, if we could get, we were asked to come in and do an overview of the Women's Reentry and Correctional Facility status update and the Youth Stabilization Treatment Facility. I feel like I've talked the last 2 hours, so my team may hear me be even quieter. We just presented this exact presentation, which is very short and sweet, to House Corrections and Institutions. So I'm going to start with the Women's Reentry and Correctional Facility, and what I would like to say. So where I want to start, and it's not in detail on here, but the acts of 2004-162, section 30, gave specific language to the Commissioner of Buildings and General Services. And that was to, he gave us authority to purchase land for the Women's Correctional Facility, the replacement. In the event that we, working with corrections, were unable to identify appropriate state-owned site locations for the replacement of the reentry and the correctional facility, then I would have authority to purchase land. And then there was a list of criteria, which is the site criteria that we have here. you were not specific to say it was in Chittenden County, but working with our partners, Chittenden County is the area that they wanted to stay because it really meets the needs of, the burden of the relocation of the staff and to retain staff and also to have the public transportation and to work with the employment options. So Chittenden County has been the area that we've been focused on. In,
Would you like questions at the end or?
I'm here to,
Let's mix it up and have questions as we go.
So, given that, that and obviously it's currently in Chittenden County, are we exclusively looking to buy land in Chittenden County and we're not going outside or?
so I am going to, I'll get to,
So maybe Joe should just shut up until you get through your, and you'll answer the question.
so I'm gonna tell you
And
that.
I'm saying this Joe, not
The
that Joe.
decision that was made was yes. Well, he'd like to talk about that, but anyway, it's not. So. I think that all of you are very aware that we worked closely with the town. So a decision was made to locate on state property that was in Essex Town. And since July of 24, we've been working on changing the zoning to the 2 sites so we could build this correctional facility. We in working with the group, the first thing that happened is we really said, why are you doing 2 sites? So Woodside, for those of you who are familiar, was permitted for correctional use. We've redesigned Woodside. There's not enough land to put a women's correctional facility there. So, that ship's sailed. So we needed to get the use to build a correctional facility on the Essex property. One of the feedbacks that we got back last year was, why are you asking us to give you permits on 2 sites, right? So there was, and I can understand, I'm gonna use the word trust. Are they really trusting us? Are we doing something nefarious? Are we saying we want these 2 sites because all of a sudden, once we have it, we're gonna put another correctional facility on the other site? So I heard them and I understood. So we modified our request for the River Road site. And we spent some money, so we had 2 sites, so before we modified it, Sabrina actually engaged with an engineering firm, and we did more detailed study on which site is the preferable site. Water, septic, access, design, and what we found out is that the site that was the preferred site by DOC was actually the less viable. It was not a viable site really to build on. So we shifted and we modified our request on the permitting. We were engaged in multiple questions and writings and information we provided to Essex. And at the end of the day, in October, they denied our request for the to permit for the use of corrections.
Matt,
Yeah.
Do you believe that it was denied more because of community pressure? Or do you not want to answer that question?
No, I will tell you what I believe. Now, that may not be
No,
correct.
sure, no,
But
because that was kind of my
Yeah.
understanding is it wasn't necessarily a situation where it couldn't be done.
Yeah.
It was more the community
yeah.
said we didn't want.
So I think there were, we went to the public meetings
Yeah.
and they were tough public meetings. And I want to commend Essex Town in the way they managed those, how they reached out to the community, because it was, there were a lot of emotions, but there were people who supported and understood and knew the importance of this and saw benefits. And then there were people just, we don't want it in our neighborhood. But there was also a breakdown at one point in time, because this is really important for me. Also, I don't think they necessarily trusted us, and I'm using that. But what it boiled down to is, history. So when we, the state, build a correctional facility in a community, we enter into agreements typically on, our contribution above and beyond what the building is going to be. So it could be an increase in pilot, it could be an expansion on a water plant or on the sewer plant. It could be improvements with transportation and more sidewalks, or adding bus services to an area that don't have them. So this is part of the process. What has occurred, which was a shift for me, is that we enter into those discussions once we know where we're building it and we're moving forward. They wanted some of that commitment from the state up front, and we weren't in a position to give it. And so, because right now we were just trying to get the authority to build this type of facility there, we still had to go through all of the other permitting, all of the other processes. And that's typically when we sit down and we talk about what their needs are. And that conversation is led by BGS. And you bring in someone, from the community, and maybe someone from the legislature, and someone from finance or from the administration. And you sit down and you talk about these. So for example, as if they need a new road, we would be bringing in transportation to say, can you reprioritize? That's part of what was important. And they wanted to focus on that. And right now we had to see if it was even going to be viable to build there. So I think not only, I think it was that, but also the community outreach. And Emily and I have really talked about it. And Joe, going forward, we want to bring a process in place up front around this, so everyone understands and where it fits in. And, we could get the list, we could talk about it, but that vote on changing the use, they really wanted to make it contingent on this agreement around all of the other things. And we're not in a position yet to do that because, and I will use Springfield Correctional Facility.
Thank you, because I mean, that was.
Because Springfield, we did a lot for that community.
Yes, yeah.
And if you look at that agreement, but it came at the right time. And it wasn't negotiated in isolation, it was a partnership. And we weren't there yet because we really needed to do the design and start the other permitting process. And so I understand why, like I said, Essex was very good to work with. And they were very professional. I understand they didn't directly say that, but I know that was from some of the comments. I know that was some of the concern. And if I may, Madam Chair, would my team add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that there were also some questions, both in terms of community impact, possible community impacts like public safety impacts, et cetera.
Right.
That we just couldn't answer with specificity. In partnership with DOC, we provided written responses to questions. Commissioners were at public meetings and tried to give the best information they could, but you can't always give a perfect crystal ball answer for what this will mean, definitely for the community. So I think that kind of was part of the community concerns about what does this mean for us when we can't say with specificity, like this is exactly what the future state will look like.
Right.
That's interesting. Just a comment. I was at one of the earlier meetings and the police chief and the fire chief from South Burlington came and expressed that there had been no problems.
And so that's what the data is saying. But when you talk to, so all of you represent your counties, every community is different. I will just say, not just, Essex, but other communities, when you talk to their local leaders of those emergency services, their impressions are different and they're concerned and they want those concerns. So is South Burlington a little bit different because of its proximity to the right? Because of of how they manage it, than where maybe if you're, you know, up in Essex or, you know, in Randolph. And so their concerns were real.
Sure.
But I think to the point, if you
Yeah.
look at the current location, the demands aren't that high. But that was, what are the demands really gonna be? And do we negotiate additional money to support, for example, those emergency services? And we just didn't have the data.
So I'm gonna say, Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner, I wanna say that on two levels, I appreciate what you just did. One, because in hearing this, what I conveyed was kind of what I heard, you know, and so there was more to it than there actually was. The second thing, what you did and how you negotiated this is absolutely how we're supposed to do it, and do it in good faith to our communities throughout the state. No matter if it's Essex or wherever. We did it in good faith. We couldn't provide something. And you said we couldn't provide that because we didn't have the data, and just saying, okay, we'll do it, and then go back later and say, oh, we can't do it. So I appreciate what you did in going through this. All that said, we gotta find it.
So I'm hoping, so first,
They just, that's the question.
Yes.
And I understand that you couldn't get to an agreement, you couldn't make the actual commitments at this time. Did you explore, was the community open to a memorandum of understanding where you laid out steps and when decisions could be made and when further agreements as information became available, so that there was a roadmap that didn't necessarily commit to anything, but said, if X happens, then Y occurs. And so you're showing in good faith that here's our process and we want to work with you and see if we can't come to agreements.
so Senator, first of all, I want to say welcome to your first day. So you are correct. And this is where I came in and the everything was moving. Going forward with where we are now, we are going to address exactly what you're saying more in that model, to say, okay, the first thing you're going to ask us is about sort of what are the enhancements for us to support this facility. And here's the roadmap. This is the process. This is best practice. This is how we worked with other communities. And this is what we're recommending. So they're aware up front, because as I said, they were, even with Virgins, it was, they knew there was opportunity to enhance multiple things. And it's been a practice of the state with facilities. But when do you do it? And what does that look like? And so some people may have perceived that we weren't going to do that. We just wanted that permit and we were going to move on. And so, you always have to reflect on how did you present it? What did you do? And this is one of our biggest reflections. Set aside their community and how they felt about it. Again, I feel that the working relationship was respectful. We all understood in Essex, and they just were not comfortable changing that property use to allow us to build a correctional facility. And I understand that. I mean, I sat in those meetings. They were pretty emotional. So what did we do as a result of that? And this is where you're going. So this is not on the PowerPoint, but what we did is we sat down and then we met with DOC. And we came up with, what are our options at a very high level. We didn't get into it. So I want this committee to know what we did, because I'm going to tell you what we're doing in just a moment. So we talked about the advantages of the risk and looked at, do we want to re-engage with the town of Essex? And we believe we need to move this project forward, and the community isn't ready. So, I'm just summarizing. We looked at Windsor State Prison site. Don't shoot the messenger. And, but we needed to look at our state-owned facility, and we looked at that. And, the risk definitely outweighed on this, you know, the reentry vision would have to be redefined because of where the location is and all of the site specifications. There's been multiple studies done on the use of the Windsor site. This legislative body, this building, have made, changes, you know, to the property and the protection with A&R. Windsor has a clear plan that they'd like to pursue, you know, regarding housing. There've been multiple acts, all of that came into it. The geographic location would have a huge impact on DOC's operation, on their budget, on their staffing. So we said, okay, you know, so that was, again, laying these out, we talked about them. Then we went and we talked about reusing South Burlington site. And we talked about the advantages and the risks of that, you know, and that one, we said, we're, you know, at this time, we're not pursuing because the South Burlington site, we own it. It's in the location, all the services are there, it has the permits. However, the building, as you know, does not meet the vision of the programming. And you would have to demolish, you would have to rebuild, the site would be tight. You'd really have to probably process and think about how would you do reentry. You could try to make it fit. You would definitely have more floors than anticipated because the programming has changed. You remember, South Burlington was designed as a man's correctional facility with a gym. That's how the original design was, right? You've added educational programs, you've added other, then you transition that to women. And so site is feasible, but it has other programming impacts. And I'm just gonna take a sip of water because
Sure.
I'm dry. I'm not sick. I just knew. It's the cat. And then we said, let's look for a new site. And we talked about advantages and disadvantages. Where we landed after that was to pursue a new site. So we are finalizing an RFP that we want to have posted by the end of January. And this RFP will be in the Chittenden, it's not on here, but basically it's gonna be within that 30-mile radius of the existing facility. Because there's contract language with the union. And you've given us criteria that says you want to find a place that supports the existing staff. So really that bubble is that radius of 30 miles. We are putting in the RFP that we are saying this site that we're looking for with the people that will respond to the RFP, it is for a correctional facility. We will put that the permitting and that process is a part of it. So we're being much more specific in this RFP on the conditions on the site, on the expectations. We currently have $15 million. And so you've given us the authority to purchase the land. And to continue with development of a design. We're not doing any more design development right now because we need to find the location. So the schedule is RFP out by the end of January. RFP responses back by the 1st of March. Then we do a site evaluation. So we expect to have everything completed by April. So what does that mean? Well, if we get responses and we get people that are interested in this, then, you know, we'll pursue it. We may not get any responses. And then we're going to have to sit and say, okay, what is the next step? How do we want to approach this? And, you know, so that's really the status of where we are. But what I want to say to this committee is that, you know, it's been a really strong, good working relationship with DOC, with the new commissioner. He has jumped in and taken this on and has been really invested in the conversations. My team has been extremely invested. We know this facility is critical to the state. And we know you want a replacement. And I'll tell you, house institutions just said, well, so if you get the land, when will you be done? We're saying that you're still looking, you would be lucky if it were 3 years. That would be because all the stars were aligned. And those stars would be permitting and decent bids and funding in the capital bill to build it. So we're saying, 3 to 5 years, with everything in place. And that's with us making a decision this year and purchasing the land. If we don't take that action and we've got to start over, then you just keep moving, that out. And this footnote that's here, at the Joint Justice Oversight Committee testimony, we did an overview. I believe you were online, Madam Chair. I don't think you were there. We did an overview on, do we need any potential language around these projects to move them forward? So as you know, we don't talk about policy until the governor does his, the capital bill and, his state of the state. But we did say that we may be requesting potential language for consideration around zoning requirements for critical state infrastructures. And because that has seemed to be for both projects, for these projects that are important, that seems to be one of the issues. And I don't think we're trying to be in any way, if language were proposed, to disrespect the local process. We've just got to be able to align, because you've now spent, 3 years, 4 years on permitting on this?
2 years now, right?
Yeah.
24, this felt like 4.
And so I'm not saying that that's happening, but I know other people, I know the Justice Oversight Committee asked us about that, and I know other people have asked about it. So I'm just making a footnote for you here. So
Can I
Yeah, just let her finish your sentence.
no, I was gonna sort of wrap up. so-
Okay,
So, and again, I'm coming into this new, so I may have been through some of these things, but I'm assuming as you're looking for a new site, you have an immediate need, but as we listen to the Commissioner of Corrections, the number of incarcerated individuals has increased. Also, programs for rehabilitation are changing. So as you look at the site, are you being cognizant of the fact that we need to buy, if we're going to buy a site, that it's going to be expandable down the road as programs change, as needs change?
Yes, so I have 2 things that I'd like to say to you. So first of all, BGS, we're the experts in construction, we do this. But, successful projects are based on partnerships. And so we work very closely with the commissioner and his team and their program, right? We're not the experts on how do you run a correctional facility and what programs we need. It's sort of like getting their specifications and their growth and what the population is and what the vision. So that's a part of the process. And what I can tell you with confidence is that that is incorporated into this. And that's why some of the other sites that I highlighted don't work for that, because of that. And then when we build anything new, which we haven't done in a long time, you have to have expansion. You have to think about future growth. So, you may be looking at a new office building, but you also want to say, well, if I need to expand that in 10 years, do I have the capacity? So that is a part of our process. We're looking at a minimum of 20 acres. That is to support this program and any future growth.
and that's for the main facility and the reentry facility.
Correct.
And reentry would be a separate facility.
So I think you could connect, but have it a separate operation to the building or have it a standalone. I think that right now the design has it as a standalone.
Yeah.
But a new site may require, and I say this, the new site may require us to reconfigure that, still keeping the goals of a separate facility.
So one that can be accessed by family members. without being-
Absolutely,
that kind of-
that's right. And there's also, costs, right? So, if you have one heating plant versus two.
Sure,
All of that stuff that we've talked about. So right now, the design, and you've invested in that, and we've spent money on that, does have that separate, but every site dictates, some shift. And, I'll say, like, even with the Essex site, well, we had this schematic design. Once Sabrina brought in her engineers and she started laying that design out, she was having to shift it.
Yeah.
Because one of the thing, and I know I'll mess this up, but there's a rule about trees and hillsides in Essex. So all of a sudden, right, that local requirement, she's shifting the building. And so I just want to say, I just want to say, you never know.
yeah, no, I appreciate that, thank you, but there are some things that are necessary to the legislature. Are you clear on what those things
Yes,
are?
The concept remains the same.
Okay,
It just may look a little different than two completely separate buildings, much like you would do in a downtown area where you may have a shop and a residence in the same building with separate entrances that are completely separate, separate from each other. But that concept of two separate programs will remain.
okay,
So I want to say that, yes, and that's DOC's job with us and their partnership and what they're doing. We don't go off and design what we think. It's partnership.
Good.
Yeah, I just got
yeah.
concerned.
Wind up.
I just got concerned, really quickly because I always want to say, absolutely, and that's the goal, but something could change that. But I think the concept in the program, that's all.
right.
Would not change.
So a couple questions. Last year, we didn't really talk that much about the detainees because it wasn't as big of an issue, but now it's huge. The detainees are, there's just so many people detained. Is there any conversation about having different facilities for detainees?
So I am not engaged directly, with corrections about that. I do know when we were meeting with, the town of Essex, the commissioner, so Commissioner Murad is who you should really talk about.
Mhm.
I know they have, discussed this with. I know the population and what they're building for. To your point, you have a certain amount of population, then you have projections. It's like building a school. Today you have this many schools, what's your 5-year projection? I know their projection of beds has increased. I do not know if he's calculated into that the detainees that you were referring to. You need to have that conversation. So if he came back to me and said, I need 190 beds because I want to accommodate the detainees, then Sabrina would be told to revise the plans to make 190 beds.
Right, just 1 second. But this RFP is going out this month,
Our RFP is not about number of beds. Our RFP is about the land,
just the property.
just the property.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry.
So on our last presentation, they actually have a slide with immigration detainee trends for 2025, and they're actually starting to drop. They were at a high of 190, and now they're down to 97 for December of 2025. So that's in our last slide, in our last presentation.
Great. So that would be a great follow-up. So right now, so this goes back to our conversation, Madam Chair, about we have a design today, but as you get the land, that could change.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. More questions about the women's reentry and correctional facility?
I think that's enough. Wow. Well, first of all, thank you, because, I did have questions and talking to the chair, vice chair, just so you know, this is it's really on our radar. Having, and I'm not, saying something that you already don't know, simply because of what we're currently dealing with is unacceptable, for the standards that we have at the moment. And, you've been put into a very unenviable position.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the job that you're doing and trying to figure this out. It is not easy, but we are tasked to do it. So, know that you're absolutely going to get the support of this room and doing it.
So I really appreciate that. And I say to the committee, thank you for the support. And that's why we, after everything that occurred in our discussions, moving forward with a new site, being very transparent with the property owners that this site is being for a women's correctional reentry program, permitting, all of those elements that are important, having that up front. So when they look at that RFP, instead of a broker just sending us, and this is what brokers do, so it's not a bad thing, but sending us 20 pieces of property where we've got to sit there and evaluate it, and no one really knows what we're building there. So we're just saying, we're looking for property to build a women's reentry and correctional facility in this area with, 20 minimum of 20 acres of land, any free permits that, benefits of that. It just goes on and on. And so, it didn't work in Essex. And let me tell you, those sites were not the ideal sites. While it was state owned, first of all, we may have had to pay for some of that land because federal dollars were used to the potential serve highway. So it wasn't necessarily clean and free land. And when Sabrina did the analysis with the engineer, she learned of, the cost to develop the site was skyrocketing, I think is the best way to describe it. Would you agree?
Yes, and buildable area was limited.
Very limited. So while on paper, it looked like 20 acres or whatever it was, I think
We ended up with about 8 buildable acres, so it was really very tight.
right? And so with this RP, we want 20 acres. If it exists, maybe we'll take 17, but we don't want 20 that's got 12 acres of wetland. So,
You and everybody else, but,
right.
Senator Engel.
Thank you, Chair. Has anybody raised their hands and said to build it here?
No.
Okay.
I'm not sure, yeah, I was just gonna share my own opinion. I'll keep that to myself. But I do think the people in this state that are aware of the needs that you are all concerned about is limited. And I think you have, as you well know, you've got some strong advocates who oppose even incarceration of the female population. They have a very loud voice.
Yeah. Sure. This.
And I think
But
there's,
yet they'll keep them in that hellhole where they're at.
I think
Because
some of
that's
them would like us just to close it and,
That's not baked in reality.
so, and I think that partnership, I think there's this perception, again, this is me, but I've sat in these meetings that corrections is doing this, but it's a part of our judicial process. Corrections doesn't choose that I get incarcerated. Our judicial process does.
Yes.
Also, and I hope you don't mind me doing this, Senator Ingles, simply because you're in real estate and I really want to kind of go on your expertise as well with this as well and going out to, because I don't know as far as the building part of it. I know you went 20 and then 8, can you go up? I mean, is that a possibility? or
So
No.
there are limits, so the site in Essex, we had to redesign and actually, because of the site limitations, we had to redesign 2 floors
Okay,
to 2 floors. That is not DOC's preference.
Yeah.
They have a very clear programming, staffing, it's all connected on how they want to provide appropriate necessary services to the individuals that are incarcerated by the state of Vermont. And so their vision is very clear. So the more you go up, and that's why South Burlington rebuilding there, you're only going up.
Mhm.
You know, you're not going out. You know, so. But that particular site, that's why I say hindsight, the site probably was not the best. And that was one of the changes once, you know, to bringing on the team who really evaluated the site and the sloping and the water and sewer. It's like, you got this, you don't have this much.
thank you.
All right, yes.
A couple questions. So you're looking for a 20-acre site. How many usable acres does the program require?
We want 20.
We would love to have 20, understanding that we may not,
Usable, so
that we may not, we most likely will not get that, and then it's just a compromise. It may be a great
it's
location.
just like if you're going out for
That's just-
20 or 20 acres and you want 20 acres of usable land, you're not getting 20 acres of usable land.
We will be looking at all options.
That's right. I think what's most important with this RFP is we are being so specific that of what the use is for. Permitting that is needed. You know, program, you know, we want to be on a municipal system that has the capacity. That was one of the other things in Essex, their sewer, their water.
They were very hesitant to give us the capacity.
Well, they didn't have it.
So it was a thing.
Yeah.
It was.
We were not gonna.
So we all of a sudden.
They were not willing to give us an answer.
So but our own analysis is, I think we figured out they have capacity, but I think they were reserving it for housing.
Mm.
Which makes sense, right? We, you know, so again, that was now that we were forced to design on site. So I think back to, you know, we want to be connected, right? We want the infrastructure that supports long-term, not a long-term maintenance or replacement cost.
And then the second question would be, you're going out for RFP, end of the month. What's your projected time period when you're looking for people to submit? Is it
So
end of February?
here's our schedule. So our goal is to have the RFP out on the streets by the end of January. It could happen a little sooner. And then we're looking at giving people a month, because of the process, because we're the state. So, you know, in that month, there will become a point in time where if you have clarity questions or written responses or wanting more, that's something that Sabrina leads. So they get the RFP and then it may say all questions, you know, need to be submitted in writing by this date. And then, because everyone gets a copy of that response, Sabrina may hold a meeting to have them come in and ask questions. I'm sure she'll manage how she wants to do that. So then we're hoping for responses back at March. I'm not gonna give an exact date, but March is a month. And then we have to review, we have to evaluate, we have to rate them, we have to read all of these. And we have to look at costs, what are they charging, and then we will probably go look at those sites. Because now we have that, and so that we're saying that will take us through March, so April, and I put it, April is our goal. Of having a selection if we receive sites and having a viable site to then move into negotiations.
And we'll still be here.
And you'll see me here, but I think, Madam Chair, I think what's really important and why we pointed this out is you've given us, my goal and our direction is of course, we would inform you, but would be to move forward with purchasing the land because you've given us the money and the authority.
But yeah, it's-
We're not saying we need specific language and have to wait till the session to end.
okay, I hear you. Okay,
Just.
Yes. and then I want to talk about Virgins, but go ahead.
Sorry,
No, this is really important.
asking the questions, but just listening to your schedule, a suggestion would be to enter into an option to purchase until you've done your due diligence on the site, because you may find your site is very different than what you think.
Sir, would you like a job at property management? So that is our practice, right? So you go through the process, then you do a letter of intent, an option, and then you do everything else. And you'll hear about that once we move to the Youth Stabilization Treatment Center.
Good segue.
So this is pretty short and sweet. I'm hoping, because I don't want to rehash, I think, Virgins. But what I will say to you is that the Department of Buildings and General Services, since early 2024, well, it started in 23, the BGS had gone out to bid looking for a site. And we had and we were looking for a build to suit development agreement for the replacement of the Youth Stabilization Treatment Center. Senator, I will just tell you that we had at one time a building that was in Essex called Woodside. And that was the state's Youth Stabilization Treatment Center. We do have some beds that are located in trailers in Middlesex supporting these individuals' needs. This has been a long-term need of the state, especially since Woodside was closed. So this has been a priority. A decision prior to me, and I understand it, was to do a build to suit development agreement for this particular facility. And what that means is we will enter into a construction development agreement. And then when the building transfers to us, it's a leased, it's an all-inclusive lease building. And that decision was made because we also have to fund the Women's Correctional Facility. And as you'll learn, you don't have a whole lot of money in the capital bill. So to meet these two demands, that was the path that was taken. BGS went out to bid. We had developers give us bids on property they own for the youth. We also included the Virgins property. There was about 10 acres of land in one quadrant that we had identified for this. We needed to expand the district through a zoning process to build this facility there. I know some of the members are well aware there was lots of discussions with Virgins, and there were lots of demands and expectations from the state for us to build a facility there. In June, we made a decision to withdraw our request and to move away from the Virgins site. So then we had to reset. And we did. One of the things that I just shared with house institutions that I want to share with you is that we've talked about the agreements that we have with the communities regarding a correctional facility and the different things that we've done. I still haven't come to total acceptance of this, and I'm still trying to figure it out. Somehow this has blended over to the youth stabilization facility and I don't look at this facility as a correctional. And so we were negotiating with Virgins, or Virgins wanted to negotiate like Essex did. What are you giving us? What are you going to invest in the infrastructure? What are you going to give us for law enforcement? And to me, it's one of the things that we need to answer. What are our limits of negotiating? Is it the same expectation? And we are working through that, but I just want to put that out there because I was like, it's not a correction. In my mind, it wasn't a correctional facility. So what we did is we went through, we worked very closely with DCF and we analyzed a lot. We went back and looked at the original bids and did an analysis and had attorneys look at, can we go to the second bidder? And the decision was, and recommendation was no. We probably could have, but our recommendation was no, because we had a signed agreement, a legal binding document with a very good firm that we've been worked with on the Virgins. And we would have like been rejecting that and going to another one. So the decision to end our agreement and to close out that agreement with that developer was the appropriate thing and the right thing to do on behalf of the state. So we did that. And then we created a new RFP. And from lessons learned from the other RFP, we were very, very specific on what we were building, what we needed to do, what we were looking for in a development and build to suit. We were very clear on what the process was going to be, is that we basically have a construction development agreement, and then that moves into a lease. We were very specific about what we wanted in cost so we could evaluate it. So we issued that RFP in October. We got our proposals back in November, and on December 8th, my team and the DCF team made a recommendation. And that recommendation is, I rate at the process of, I did a letter of intent to the developer that we are interested in moving forward with them and starting negotiations. I'm not trying to hide anything or not share with you because we have not negotiated and we don't have a signed contract. I can't get into the details, but I can tell you that the site, based on our evaluation, meets all of that criteria and location, and it's a great first start. And if we get through negotiations and everything comes to and the stars align, we have potential of starting construction in September of 2026.
Okay,
And that's a huge,
terrific. And that's similar to the process that you are planning to use for the.
yeah, except for we're gonna build it and.
Yeah, that's true,
and
exactly that, but the.
And I
RFP
think so this RFP done, we were very specific also on this one, that all of the permitting requirements and expectations sits with the developer. Prior to the last part, we divided it up. Sabrina was in charge of half. And then the developer would have been in charge of the other half. We will partner, but these developers, because what's different is they know their communities, they own the land, they know the community process. Instead of us leading it, they're going to lead it and we will be there as part of the team. And I think that does make a difference. Because we have to, I think with confidence, as I look over to my team, I don't think we would have gotten this piece of property as an offer if they hadn't thought about all of those permitting requirements that we put on there, right? They have to, feel with confidence they're gonna help us get there.
That's big news.
Yeah.
Is the zoning, can I just tell me if you can't say it, but is the site,
Well, this is,
will it require a zoning change?
I think if it's considered a correctional facility, yes, I want to be, I don't want to commit to something to bring it, but I think, but go ahead. I mean, it's about it being a correctional.
I think it might, but we're optimistic. That if it does need a change, that the community will be receptive, but ultimately it's the developer's obligation to determine whether the zoning will allow use to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Well,
And that's why I say with confidence, I don't think they would have offered, I mean, we talked about this in-house institutions, and I think all of you know, to put an RFP together, I mean, of this scope, businesses spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I don't think if they, I have to believe from a business perspective, if they didn't see the potential, they would have invested that time.
Yes,
Can I ask a couple of update questions?
We are here on your behalf.
Windsor Courthouse, where are we? Almost.
So I believe, Joe, I'm gonna let you take that one away. Occupancy,
Is the end of this month that they're looking at. I'm not 100% sure, but I know it's almost complete.
Okay. Well, that was short, sweet.
one of the things we're doing, Madam Chair, for house institutions, and we can share, so if you wanna do it. To fill the void, we are doing updates on projects from last year and this type of thing, so that one.
good,
That one would be,
Yes.
that one would be on the list, so if you want us to coordinate.
definitely.
We're gonna go back to the office and figure out what we can do this week. Doesn't mean you have to have us in this week, but we can tell you what we're ready on existing projects to present.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, and even if we don't have time to bring you in, but I think we will, it'd be helpful to have the report.
Well, there'll be PowerPoints on individual
Okay,
projects.
so that's great.
And you mentioned it earlier, and I can't let you go by without, Windsor Prison. It's been dormant since 2017.
Uh-huh.
You look at it, look at me.
Well, because we've done the studies, but
Yes,
I
nothing.
don't, well, we don't have any direction
No,
to do
I know,
anything more
I know.
with that.
Okay.
I mean, that's,
Sure.
So,
Joe is a man of few words.
but are you watching his body language?
Don't give it away.
No, actually, he doesn't, let me tell you what, and Emily has no, Emily, I have to read her eyes. You wanna play poker with me. You don't wanna play poker with those two.
Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Anything
No,
else?
thank you for being here. We will, obviously, keep you, here. Or have you here many more times.
Yep.
There's so much going on.
Yeah, and our teams, Joe will lead on. I'll always be available, for the most part, but Joe will do, he and his team will do the overview, the status, on those projects and where his team's at. Okay,
Thank you for your
Thanks so
work
much.
thank you,
Thank you.
and happy new year.
too.
Oh, look at that, just in time for the next meeting.
Okay,
Oh,
anything else? No, okay, we are adjourned.
well, that's nice.
We'll meet again after